My name is Hannah Scott. I am the program director in the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences Center for Cooperatives at Ohio State University, which provides management services to the Mid-America Cooperative Council. I am going to stop my screen share and introduce our panelists. I'm really excited to have Leland Rawling. Leland is the Director of Information Systems Development with Growmark. Thank you so much for being here today, Leland. We're really excited to hear from you. Over the past 15 years, Leland has been instrumental in the development, implementation, and maintenance of numerous business-critical digital solutions at Growmark. Whether assuming the role as a developer, a technical lead, a product owner, or overseeing all of those functions, he's consistently driven initiatives serving internal operations, wholesale product divisions, and member companies within the cooperative. In his current role, Leland oversees the information systems development teams at Growmark and steers the strategic direction and vision of their development and data platforms. And he ensures the delivery of state-of-the-art digital solutions and pioneering technologies such as generative AI and machine learning within the ever-changing agricultural landscape. So we are so excited to have Leland with us this afternoon. And I am going to introduce both of you here this afternoon, and then I'm going to turn it to you first, Leland. We also have with us, I'm so excited to have Radha Narla. Radha is currently the Chief Architect for Strategy, Data, and Innovation at Nationwide, based in Columbus, Ohio. Radha leads the architecture function supporting technology strategy, customer data, enterprise analytics, enterprise strategic partnerships, enterprise innovation, and emerging technology R&D. And Radha has been at the forefront of generative AI enablement, in Nationwide, establishing foundational architecture for this cutting-edge technology. So we're so excited to have both of you with us this afternoon. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it to you guys as the experts. Leland, I'm going to ask you to kick us off.
So thank you for the introduction, Hannah. I really appreciate it. Again, Leland Rawling, Director of Information Systems Development. Basically just a long term I'm in charge of all of our custom development teams at Growmark. Probably the key term there is it's information systems. So it really just is everything around anything that's web dev, mobile development, data, whatever it is. Our teams are the ones that develop that stuff. If you have any questions at the end of this, after this, I'm all ears. My LinkedIn's there if you want to find me, and I'm open to any conversations. I love having those conversations. So just a little bit about Growmark and what we kind of do. We're headquartered in Bloomington, Illinois. We're about the third or fourth largest agricultural co-op in the United States, and we do serve members in Canada. We own the FS brand, so many of you who are probably out there in the Midwest, I'm sure you've driven past the grain elevator and seen the FS brand on the side of it. That is our main brand, and our members all our core members really have that brand, just their logo and everything on everything. So that's 40 local cooperatives across the Midwest. We also just in 2020 kind of merged and acquired Southern States, and some of the members that were part of that cooperative. We also have a working relationship with Southern States. So that is the southeastern states, down in Georgia and even through Tennessee, Kentucky, into the Carolinas. And then Seedway is another brand that we carry, which serves seeds throughout the lower 48 states. They're more stationed out in the eastern seaboard, but they serve all lower 48. And then just a few things that people don't realize we do. We actually are in the logistics business. We do have our own logistics company that does help us deliver fuel and services to our members. Manitou Transit, which is in our neck of the woods here in Bloomington, but serves throughout the Midwest. We have our own commodity trading unit, Midco. And we also have, and this probably more recently in the news, we have a joint venture fund with CHS, $50 million that we invest in a variety of different products. We just invested in Traction Ag, which is a farm accounting software. So those are just some of the things that we do. or some of the brands that we have. This is just an array of the things that we do. So as you can imagine, and many of the other co-ops here, we're servicing growers, and the member companies have their retail locations set up to, have all those products that any farmer would need. And so when we talk about that, if I talk to a friend, they may think, well, it's just seed and up and do some harvest, and maybe you're putting some stuff in the field, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that, right? Fuel is a big part of our business. We even have our own gas stations in some places, Fast Stop, and we also service quite a bit of propane. I think we're the second largest potentially propane retailer, or fourth largest. I cannot remember exactly, but we are one of the largest propane retailers in the country. We also have our own terminals in some cases, refined fuel and propane. And so, and as I mentioned before, we're in the logistics business as well. We're delivering product to those members, and we're dispatching it. And we're doing all of those things. So we have a fairly large footprint that we try to service, and we are in a lot of different product areas. And so with that comes a lot of challenges, as you can imagine. So I just want to be brief, and I want to get to the fun questions really, but AI. So how we kind of leverage AI at Growmark. So there's traditional AI, and there's obviously what I'm assuming everyone's heard of, the generative AI, right? So traditional AI, when I talk about it, and really when we talk to other teams internally about it, it's really about the predictiveness, right? Getting to the predictive place. And so we're not heavily involved, but we are doing a lot. We feel like it's key. And we're obviously talking with vendors and utilizing vendors in those spaces to be able to leverage whatever they've got that we can leverage in our business to try to get to where we're trying to go. So some of those things are, so here's just a few examples of straight up just machine learning, but also getting into the generative space. So demand forecasting is a big one for us. So, and when we say demand, I mean, it can be anything, right? It can be fuel, which is really one of the primary ones we go after, but we also talk through, maybe there's a way we can predict where we might need to lay in hydrous planning, right? So if I have inventory levels from all of my members, could I predict maybe where I need to move product as the growing season goes along, right? Document processing. We do a lot of baked document processing where we may have a vendor that has a product that is doing a lot of machine learning behind the scenes. They've kind of trained a model to do all of this stuff to recognize all these documents. And we will then turn that loose on one of the use cases would be invoicing or bill of lading documents, things like that. NLP, natural language processing, that really drives home into the chatbot realm. We've used some of that. We've had some proof of concepts internally with that, where we try to utilize that with our members who are going to our customer portal to pick up tickets quicker, to answer their questions quicker without having to interact with an actual person, because it may just be a very simple thing. Image and video recognition, we've done a few pretty heavy proof of concepts on that, where we were trying to do some straight up just video streaming from a terminal, where we could see, oh, there's a truck there, a number of trucks that came in. Instead of having someone bean count each truck coming in and figure out a wait time, we've kind of figured out, okay, based on all the trucks coming in and our average time and the trucks going out, we can utilize machine learning algorithms to actually figure out what a wait time would be, instead of maybe tracking traffic patterns based on an app on a phone or something like that, right? Something very basic, but still is within the realm of image and video recognition. Text recognition, we've done a ton of this. We've utilized this in production today. A lot of the document processing relies on that, but also we've done things where we may be scraping an image with some text that we need to maybe identify a truck or something like that. And then just data analysis in general, right? Doing more with less. And that's kind of where the generative space comes in, right? You can feed a document into a generative AI model, and you can spit out a summarization of it. You can find things quicker. A lot of the areas that we're really exploring are not even really around ag per se, right? It's just more of a general, hey, legal needs to go through this entire new law that came out. Can you summarize it for me? So we are kind of getting into that. But on the flip side, there's disruption. So this image I kind of have up there, this is a sprayer or a precision ag piece. So precision ag is huge. It's one of those things where we're trying to spray less volume on the field, especially around crop protection products. And so volume is a business that we're in. We deal in volume. and volume is becoming less now because of these disruptions in the industry. And I say disruption, but really it's just things are changing, right? And so new business models are coming along. And so that's kind of the flip side of the AI piece, right? It's bringing about new change that we need to adapt to figure out where we want to go as an organization. And then this is just more of in the generative AI space, and this is kind of how we're starting to kind of move along in the generative space. We see it as, personal productivity. Obviously, everyone's going to have their version of whatever generative AI model they have on their computer, whether it's you're using ChatGPT or you're using a Copilot or whatever. But there's that personal productivity space, helping you draft emails faster or look through documents quicker or generate some sort of content faster. We look at it from a support and knowledge standpoint. And I think this is where I think someone had asked potentially about low-hanging fruit at one point here. Low-hanging fruit to us is support and knowledge, right? Can we get to the answer faster because this thing has delved through all the documentation that we have sitting out there, and it doesn't take a human to have to go read all of it. We can get right to the answer. And so that is a space that we really are heavily in. Operations, not so much, but we are exploring. I think the advent of AI agents and having the ability to hook a lot of different things together, utilizing what a generative AI model can do, can get us to a place where we are automating a lot of operational pieces and getting faster and more efficient. And then just innovation I have on there, mainly because we are exploring a lot of products that vendors are coming to us with and saying, hey, we've utilized generative AI in this space. This could be useful for you. We like to also leverage that with proof of concept projects that we have internally. And sometimes we meet in the middle, and then it ends up being a really great thing that we can leverage. And then just risks in general. So these are kind of my top three, but obviously it changes per industry. For those of you probably in the ag space and maybe just dealing with farmers in general, bias and inaccuracies is obviously the biggest issue. If anybody here's, remember when I was a kid, I worked on a farm. I was always going with my dad down to the coffee shop, and he would talk to a lot of farmers. And my dad was not a farmer, but he was always talk to them and talk to them about how the fields were, and he generally enjoyed that. They talk. A lot of them talk about who's doing what's going on, and maybe who's servicing someone better, what seed are you using, what are the things you're trying, what hybrids are out there, etc. The other thing that gets talked about is, hey, I used this new thing and it's not good. It doesn't work. It didn't work for me. It's not great. And so inaccuracies really do blow up in your face in the ag industry, right? Like we can't have things that aren't working well, or working well to an extent of it's maybe it's 80 or 90% accurate, but 90% accurate in this space is not great. So those are some things that we really struggle with. Poor data quality is another huge one, which adds to the inaccuracies. And then just difficulties in data connectivity. It's always been a problem in the ag space, but because of those difficulties, you may not have the data you need to really get to an accurate measurement. So security and privacy, another one. All of our members, I think their biggest fear is, I'm going to put all my stuff in the thing, the LLM or the ChatGPT or whatever, and another member is going to be able to see it. Or it's going to be out there, and I now have a privacy risk, right? Some person who's phishing can try to phish me a bunch of emails that have a lot of my data that looks kind of like what I would write. And so they have employees that may click on that email and then they may cause a breach, right? So there is some worry about that, but I think the former is probably more true, which is I don't want other people to see the thing that I haven't decided that they can see. And so there's some concern there. They want the peace of mind of being in their own kind of walled off garden where they can do what they need to do. And then I think from my perspective, and this is more, it's in the background, but it's not quite at the forefront yet, regulation and copyright rules, right? So I think there's a general sentiment for regulation will come in the AI space, and what will that look like? And will that cost me? Or will that cost Growmark? Or will that cost my member money? Because they now have an increase in cost because the company that's providing that LLM has to now pay X, Y, Z. And so we do get sometimes some concerns from people, well, yeah, I see where this is going. It's probably going to be just like this other thing that gets regulated. And now I've got to kind of try to figure out if I'm even going to be able to use it or not. So there's a lot of questions around copyright regulation, like what could happen, what will happen. And so there's some general concern there to just get right on this bus and go quickly instead of maybe just, like many hyped products, maybe waiting and seeing what's going to happen and then maybe dipping a toe. So that's kind of all I've got. I'll turn it back over to Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leland, for that introduction, and I'm really excited to dive more into that in our Q&A. And I'm going to turn it over to Radha Narla to share with us from Nationwide's perspective and your perspective, Radha.
Thanks, Leland, for that introduction and your perspective. Obviously, most of mine aligns with what you have already shared. Probably cover a little bit of a few things that are specific to how we are approaching as well. As Hannah introduced, I'm Chief Architect at Nationwide. Nationwide is one of the Fortune 100 companies. We offer insurance as well as financial services products. Our insurance spectrum goes from auto, homeowners, pet insurance, etc., as well as both personal and commercial insurance. And we have several financial services offerings, including retirement plans, annuities, life insurance, and so forth. Coming into, in terms of a few stats, fortunate to be with Nationwide. We are one of among the top best. As you can see, our ratings as of March 2024. We have several areas where we are in the top 10. In the interest of time, instead of going into each of these, I'm gonna spend a little bit more time on the AI itself. So coming into AI, Leland gave an excellent introduction and some of the areas where they are leveraging artificial intelligence. I took a more of a generic approach in terms of explaining. So broadly speaking, we have narrow AI and general AI. So historically, narrow artificial intelligence is where a program can do a specific task very well, versus where as you come into the general artificial intelligence area, most of the intelligence is the programs can adapt to multitude of tasks without you having to teach and train every single time for every single task. So that is the fundamental difference. In terms of where we are, if you get past general artificial intelligence, there is also a concept of super intelligence where the artificial intelligence actually surpasses the abilities of humans. If we were to kind of categorize where we are kind of we're into a little bit into a general intelligence, but not exactly completely artificial general intelligence known as AGI. So so we have surpassed from where we have rule-based engines or simple chatbots that can probably address a few questions well, but not necessarily any general question. Things like that, where we have in the past, going into the deeper artificial intelligence. If we were to look at the layers of artificial intelligence, as you can see, more generally speaking, artificial intelligence is where the programs can think, act, learn, and solve problems and behave like humans, right? But as you go into the different layers, the machine learning is where you are training the program so that it can learn and behave, versus you're programming every single task specifically. And you further go into the deep learning space. The programs are learning based on a massive amounts of data, and that massive amounts of data will help the program learn so much that you are not retraining the program for every single task, and it is able to have a broader spectrum of knowledge in various domains. So that takes us to generative AI. Generative AI is specifically a form of AI that creates new content. So it is understanding and it's learning and acquiring knowledge based on where the massive amount of data that it is fed, and it uses that to create new content, whether it be text or images or audio, video, or software code or whatnot. So the best example, as Leland also referenced, ChatGPT as being is the example that kind of took us all by storm. Little over probably at this point 18 months maybe, and since then various large language models have emerged that are making the artificial intelligence and the machine learning, actually democratizing the machine learning. In the past, if we were to do artificial intelligence, the data science, which is a very complex profession, is of a critical area for organizations to have. But with generative AI, the AI is being democratized, meaning anybody eventually will be able to develop AI applications for various use cases without necessarily having the significant skills that are needed for developing the programs. So with that as a context, from a nationwide perspective, we have a very established practice in terms of the machine learning, and we have been using that for several years in areas like underwriting, claims processing, as well as financial forecasting, risk assessments, etc. But the past 18 months have been a significant focus for us on the generative AI. I'll give a few examples as we go into the rest of the slides. Quickly speaking, in terms of the benefits and risks, with the artificial intelligence, obviously, a lot of automation. I'll differentiate the automation from the rule-based automation that you can accomplish without AI to intelligent automation, if you will. So that the intelligent automation can be achieved for operational efficiency or process efficiency, or whether it is internal or external, regardless, the efficiency is a critical benefit. Personalization, for those of us who work with members, customer experience and customer service are of utmost important. So being able to provide that personalized experience is where we focus on as a nationwide. It's a significant value for us from a personalization standpoint. So I briefly spoke about narrow intelligence and general artificial intelligence, as you can see, and the spectrum of artificial intelligence, where you go from machine learning to deep learning to generative AI, where generative AI is where the significant new content creation actually is the key aspect of the generative AI that is that significantly advanced the artificial intelligence and helping us to democratize the artificial intelligence programs. So going into benefits, we talked about efficiency, personalization, and data analysis, and the insights that you can glean from the volumes of data that is available in any organization using internal and external data. Being able to uncover trends, etc., is a key aspect in developing new products, new business models, and whatnot. And lastly, last but not least, it's innovation, helping us to actually invent our new business models as well. Risks, pretty much everything covered by Leland already. I won't repeat it. Security, data privacy, and bias all are of importance, very valid risks, even especially in the context of generative AI, even more so than the predictive AI. The one way that we are dealing with the risk, I'll talk a little bit in terms of how we are approaching. But a concept called human in the loop is a critical aspect when it comes to generative AI. What we are doing is meaning until we are able to really trust the outcome generated by this generative AI technology, the important aspect of validating the results. So do the bunch of work through the AI, but have a validation step, human validation, before leveraging the results for any critical function. So that is one way of our risk management currently that we are using. The job displacement, as much as it will create many jobs, it is important to acknowledge so that the organizations can plan for upskilling and reskilling the employees to prepare for the future. The way we look at it is it's not about necessarily having a significant impact for the associates, but instead reskilling them so that they're focusing on specific types of activity where our motto is we humans focus on really emotional needs of our customers, whereas leveraging the artificial intelligence for the background work where that needs to be done. A simple example, we developed a prototype called Bionic Customer Service last year. So it's an example of where when a customer calls for a service in an emergency, the CSR is able to really fully pay attention to the customer, where the lot of work in terms of, let us say the customer calls reporting a fire damage to their home, and the CSR is able to really pay attention to the customer, provide the emotional support needed in the emergency, but use the AI programs that are helping the CSR to book a hotel for the customer, or make a car reservation, or make a maybe pet visit for their pets if they are injured or whatnot. So all of the activities happen at a click of the time. That is general concept that we used as a demonstrating the concept, and we are slowly getting there in terms of being able to walk towards that future. We call the bionic future, that is humans and machines working together to achieve greater good. In terms of the approaching, again, I talked briefly about the risk. So there is a lot of benefit to AI. At the same time, there is a lot of risk. How do we deal with the dilemma? The approach that we take is we have a concept called blue team and red team, where the blue team is focused on actually enabling the AI, identifying opportunities, doing a feasibility analysis, making sure that there are technology capabilities enabled. We do the experimentation and delivering the results. Whereas the red team is focused on setting the policies, defining policies, managing the risk, measuring the risk, ensuring that there is governance associated with all the AI being delivered. So that's a very good balance. Instead of really halting fully, trusting to the extent we can, but trust but verify more, where, as I mentioned before, we use human in the loop to be able to have that level of confidence that we are not putting anything at risk for our organization or for our customers. In terms of our overall strategy for cooperatives, this is general thinking. I want to give a quick tool for the toolbox that you guys can use. If you see the AI opportunity radar, it's basically an empty tool here, but it provides you an index where AI applications can range from very basic low-hanging fruits, what we refer to as everyday AI, that is mostly the productivity applications, internal facing applications, and some of the customer service chatbots and things of that nature. Whereas as you go towards right here, we are looking at game-changing AI, which is helping you actually innovate new products, or changing business models, opening doors for new markets, etc. Obviously, with that, there is also complexity and risk involved as well, and the cost as well. So as you go towards right here, the cost and complexity increases, whereas on the green space here, it's relatively, I would say, easier to be able to implement some of the applications. And also from a risk management perspective, you can think of it as internal operations as well as external customer facing. So we are currently, when it comes to generative AI, we are currently focused on internal facing. So there is always, before we really put generative AI based applications in front of our customers, we are internally testing and using it for our own users, internal users. So that is one way, another tactic that we use for risk mitigation. In terms of, there is a question about what kind of teams and what kind of communication plans, etc. needed. Just wanted to share a few thoughts here. Start with identifying business opportunities. That's a key aspect, and ensure that there are policies and guidelines in place. In terms of people, upskilling and educating them to get ready for it. Of course, you need to have a technology foundation. The foundation can come either internally, and having internal partnerships as well as external partnerships is critical. Internal being, if the adage that it takes a village is more true so than ever in the context of this. We need all sorts of business functions that are engaged within the development of AI applications. That includes our technology team, business teams, risk management teams, security and infrastructure folks, our legal, privacy, compliance, you name it. We have all groups participating in these initiatives. From an external perspective, we partner with various vendors that are, whether it is cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or some of the application platform development companies like Databricks, Snowflake, etc., to work with them, and also consulting services like Cognizant and so forth, to work with them, to learn from them, as well as share our learnings and leverage them for co-creation of solutions. So that's some of the practices you guys can also try as well. The one key concept that I want to call out is, once you identify priorities, opportunities, what the way approach we use is, it's all R&D. Once we prioritize, we use test and learn approach, internal experiments first, then small scale pilots where targeted users within the company are actually testing. And then we have in-market tests for a targeted audience, and then finally scale them for a massive production audience. I won't go through all of the slide, but I just wanted to call out a few applications. Probably you're all familiar with the real world applications in general, but when it comes to co-ops, member services is the key, operational efficiency, community engagement through either sentiment analysis on customers, social media posts, etc., and sustainable practices are the kind of a few groupings there. But going back to this again, focusing on that left-hand side spectrum as a low-hanging fruits before venturing out into the major game-changing AI initiatives is a key aspect. I've seen a question regarding some of these. This is a good example of how we use AI. I have generated this content. I have not. This is not my area of expertise when it comes to some of these applications. So I used Bing Copilot to answer the question that I received about some of the available AI applications for standards of practice, the procedure SOPs or HACCP plans, etc. And these are some of the applications Bing Copilot pointed me to. Have not fully validated, but I thought it would be at least interesting for some of you to look into this HACCP builder, etc. When it comes to gap audit, it seemed more like a financial audit, so I'm not too familiar with the food related audit spectrum, but I just wanted to point that out. I will share the slides if you like, specific ag and dairy, banking and business development applications. So some of these on the top are obviously going to those predictive and IoT type of applications, etc., that require AI, predictive AI as well. But if you go into some of the customer service type of things, fraud detection, personalization, content generation and automation, etc., are all kind of in that low-hanging sector, in my opinion, where you can use available generative AI solutions to quickly develop applications. With that, I will hand it off back to you, Hannah.
Thank you both so much, Radha and Leland. We're going to switch into the Q&A portion of the conversation. One of the questions that we received, Radha, you had answered this somewhat, but I want to take a step kind of back and think about this question maybe a little bit more broadly. And I'll ask you to comment first, Radha, and then I'll ask Leland to share as well. Thinking about AI solutions, particularly in areas that are heavy compliance areas, right? Or thinking about how we can use AI in spaces that are to help with compliance even. What are some of the things that you think about in that space? Some of the things that you would prioritize in that space. So Radha, to you first, and then we'll go to Leland.
Thank you for that question. So when it comes to compliance, having that AI policy to be able to understand what are the approved practices from an organization perspective, because there are experts in that space that can provide us. So for example, I'm in the technology, not necessarily the expert when it comes to regulation, and I'll rely on the expertise from our privacy and compliance department. They provide the standard guidelines, and we ensure that in terms of implementation, we ensure that for one, our data is not shared, is not leveraged for training the large language models by the third-party providers. That's the basic thing that we validate when we are purchasing third-party products or whatnot. Similarly, we have restrictions in terms of what cloud services we use. So, for example, we do not directly use OpenAI, but we use OpenAI services through an existing cloud provider that provides the surrounding security completely for us, that we trust, and we have established infrastructure that can protect the data to the extent that we need. So those are some of the practices that we use, and also human validation again is the core concept that we are kind of currently following.
Excellent, thank you. Leland?
Yeah, so like I would agree. Again, we do use third parties, and we do ensure that we are kind of in a walled off garden for those customers, right? So their data isn't being used to train those models, and their data isn't being exposed to somebody that may be able to see it. We do own data about our customers, and we do allow them to opt out. So we do have customers that can say, I don't want to be a part of that program, and it's pretty granular. It gets really down to even row level to some extent. We don't, if we ever are going to utilize it in some way that's going to be more of the benefit of the system, it is anonymized, and it is made to not surface a field level piece of information about where even a grower of that customer of one of our members is at. So we do our due diligence on that to that level. That is one place, at least here at Growmark, extremely important. It actually is threaded throughout almost every single major data discussion, is what are we allowed to access? I mean, again, like we're not really allowed to access our members' competitor data. So like they may be buying a competitor product. We're not even allowed to access that. So, and that's for their peace of mind, right? They don't want us to use it for pricing or whatever. So even to that extent, we funnel that through our system. And then if we are going to train something, we have rules against that, rules around that of like, okay, we're going to anonymize this to do a certain thing. And so, yes, they are allowed to opt out, and they are allowed to even remove the data if they want to and get out of that. Now, that would be somewhat against the whole nature of the cooperative and trying to have more of that buying group per se, but they are allowed to do that, and they have that option.
Yeah, great. Thank you both so much. And this feeds into really a question around, you talked about the risks that you see, of course, security and privacy being one of those major risks, and Leland sharing that some folks have concerns, particularly around their data and the security and privacy. I want to kind of flip that script a little bit, right? We're talking about the risks of utilizing AI. What do you guys see as the risks of not utilizing AI at this point? Or risks, perhaps you might think about that as like, is there a risk of falling behind, or not upskilling, and what that might be? And to Thomas's question in the Q&A, maybe connecting to what would you say to those who are more hesitant to utilize AI solutions but might gain a lot from it? Is there a risk there? And I'll ask Leland, I'll ask you to start, and then I'll ask Radha to add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because I feel like I'm in that same boat. I'm in the hesitant to utilize, but I think there is a fear of, well, if we're not utilizing it and somebody else really figures it out, right? And they are able to move their business faster than us, then that's obviously a risk, right? But I do think, like, if you are hesitant, I think to Radha's point earlier, and the one I was kind of making during my slides, there is low-hanging fruit there that can kind of introduce you to what AI can do and leverage without really having a whole lot of risk around an actual business operation. To Radha's slide, there's the left side and the right side, right? And the left side was more, or I think it was the right side maybe, but the game-changing AI part of it is more of that operations piece. And you don't necessarily have to go at it from that perspective, right? Maybe it's up front just, I have this 600-page document that a lot of people leverage. Let's feed that into the generative AI piece and see if it gets us really close. It helps a lot of people just, it takes a lot of cognitive load off people internally answering questions all day. One of our use cases has been, we have something called the Crop Protection Handbook, which all these growers look at to basically figure out where they need to place, how much product they need to place in a certain scenario. And we have crop specialists here that spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day just answering. I mean, they might as well just be the Google of the Crop Protection Handbook. Hey, that's on page 15, section 5, or that's on page 35, section A. They spend a lot of time answering that question. So the idea was, well, can we get them out of that? Can we even say, if we could save them even 2 hours, it's a huge win across the system, right? So I would say if you're hesitant about AI, I think some of those low-hanging fruit pieces are really good to go after just to get a sense of what it is. And then I think maybe that'll help you take off to, oh, okay, now I kind of see what this is and how I can put the human in the loop, to Radha's point. And maybe I can, okay, maybe we do work with a vendor, but we have a process where there is a person checking it and you can control that process. And then that gets to somebody's checking something, and it's not just kind of a runaway process that's relying on a black box that you don't even know what it's doing. So I would say that if you are hesitant, that's kind of the way I would go about it.
Yeah, Leland covered for the most part. I couldn't agree more with what he said. I'm definitely in the blue team. I would say my focus is on enabling. Of course, I do pay attention to the risk and ensure that we don't put anything at risk. But if there is hesitancy, I would say this. If we are using Google, for example, maybe if I start with I would say start with individually. I probably got out of the habit of using Google and I go to the publicly available ChatGPT or Bing Copilot today, because it's much more useful because it's conversational, right? Versus you search and look at 10 links it is providing and figure out which one is useful to you, versus having a conversation with the chatbot to learn about or ask questions, whether it is something related to work or whether it's something related to leisure, recipes or travel, whatnot, right? So just getting that confidence level that, yeah, it may not be 100% accurate, it's a given, but understanding how much valuable it is. Then I would like to second on the example that Leland talked about, the knowledge assist, right? Today, there are the cloud services are available where you can, out of the box, without really spending, maybe within 2 hours of development, not using any code, you can feed number of documents to the program and you can ask any question. So you're not, instead of reading thousands of pages or watching a 2-hour video, you're feeding those things to the LLM and you're able to converse with it. And imagine the productivity, right? So start with at least internal associates, slowly into internal facing applications or internal facing end users, and then eventually go into that external facing mode. There is a lot of productivity boost, whether it is in technology side for code development or whether it is simply the search and knowledge assist. How many customer service representatives need that knowledge, and they rely on so many applications, and put some knowledge in front of them, an easy way to access the knowledge using these, which is a safe way, and then figure out how to slowly go towards that game-changing AI.
That's really helpful to think about, like that maybe personal productivity space as one of the kind of lower hanging fruits. And this gets to a question we have in the Q&A, and a question that we talked about in the alignment conversation we had before today, is thinking about how to upskill folks for this space, right? How to get them comfortable with it, how to introduce it effectively, and then how to upskill them. And to one of the questions here in the chat, what are you guys seeing in your organizations internally to help introduce AI applications internally, if we're starting internally, what is that process like to introduce folks? What is that process like to upskill? What are some strategies that have been useful there? I would like to start, maybe we'll start with Radha and then back to Leland if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, we have internal associate upskilling programs. We actually have a mandatory training program where each associate, whether it is technology or business associate, needs to learn with a suggested set of training courses depending on the role that we have developed those programs, mandating number of hours for a specific year actually. And then we also have developed something called Playground. So if you use, for those of you who have access to maybe things like ChatGPT with a subscribed membership, you can access Playground where you can test various language models by using different prompts and all. What we did was a safe way to do the same for access to everybody within our company, a playground-like environment where they can safely test. So when you think of generative AI, prompt engineering is very much of a new skill that every one of us needs in future. So how do you interact with large language model? How do you ask the question so that you really get a very optimal response? That in itself is a skill. And in order to train on those basic skills, we have developed some tools as well as occasionally we do bring in external speakers who have frameworks for those kind of prompt engineering skills and all. So we use various internal and external measures to kind of continue to upskill the associates.
Yeah, so that sounds great. I want to do that. So so from our side, we're more in the hesitancy phase. We have quite a few. We basically at this point in time, we have a lot of people trying out all of the products. So we've subscribed to various different platforms in the private realm, and we have quite a few people internally trying a lot of those products, and we're having a lot of more committee style meetings on like, where do we want to go with this? How do we want to do this? Training wise, it's more really about, hey, can we get people together and kind of show each other what we're doing right now? But in the past, from where we would probably go, we would probably start to circle around some sort of real training, right? We've had hackathons before for things like our Tableau environment or we've had stuff around developments. But that's probably the thing we would go to, right? We usually bring in a vendor, have someone sit alongside that kind of knows the thing, or perhaps in this case, it might not even be a vendor. It may just be someone who is really an expert on this thing and can kind of showcase the pitfalls. We have been pretty heavy in the security and privacy department of, hey, we need to start coming up with policy and guidelines around how to utilize these tools and get that out in front of all this stuff before we start heading into it, right? When 18 months ago, when this all first came out, there was probably people put stuff into ChatGPT public that probably shouldn't have been putting it there, right? And so it's all that learning as well, right? Like what is it I can and can't do? And so we are starting that journey already because we are starting to utilize in the personal productivity space tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, things like that within your kind of Microsoft Office suite or whatever it is you're using. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. But I would venture that it will go more in the in-person trainings to kind of leverage, kind of crowdsource ideas and leverage what we're trying to do, and then move on from there to a more formal training structure.
That's really great. I like that idea of like having folks test things out and then share with each other. We have time for one more question. This has been really, really helpful, informative. So thank you so much. To a question in the chat, and then again, something that we talked about as we were preparing for today. Radha, you kind of touched on this in your conversation in that loop with kind of thinking about who's involved in adopting AI technologies in a business. I just want to go back to that for a few minutes and think very specifically around like who needs to be involved in that adoption decision making. And one of our attendees is asking, in the cooperative space, we're thinking about also that member owned and controlled piece, right? What role Do perhaps boards play in ensuring that we're being diligent in that process? And how do we make sure various stakeholders in our business organizations are involved? So Radha, I'd like to ask you to start.
Yeah. In our case, the board of directors are really playing a very active role. Actually, they surprised us with their enthusiasm when we took some examples to show them prototypes or help them experience some of these programs. And it's not only duty of care and diligence, but the significant support. That's a good start. Then we have at the top of the house, we have next board of directors, we have what we call as a artificial intelligence steering committee. That includes the top level leaders, both from business and technology. That includes our risk, model risk management, enterprise risk management, security, as well as our line of business leaders as well, along with our technology leaders. They are the ones that are steering overall in terms of ensuring the funding support, ensuring the right prioritization is in place, and they are kind of resolving the hurdles for us as we go. And then we have next level operating committees with next level leaders actually in the execution of individual work streams. We have various work streams. I called out two, like a blue team and red team, but we also have kind of sub teams under that to enable the business, to enable technology. So we have a very tight integration with our HR partners who are driving these training programs across the organization, as well as our marketing department in terms of controlling how we are represented in the external organization as well. And in addition to technology, the support from our line of businesses in terms of being able to fund, provide sponsorship to our research and development projects as well as production pilots. So those are some of the groups I would say. So having that top level leadership support and is a critical aspect. I would not underestimate that.
Great perspective. Thanks for sharing. Leland?
Yeah, so from our perspective, really, this has come more from our executive leadership level, but board of directors is involved. They are curious, just like anyone else, because they're out there utilizing the tools and looking at it and seeing how can we leverage it. So I think from their perspective, it does come more from oversight role, right? What is happening? What is going to happen with this space, and where is it going to affect us? And so I kind of mentioned disruption. I think where they're really involved is how is this going to change our business? And it already is really. If you're really in the ag space and you're really paying attention to a lot of the things that are going on, AI has really dived deep into the machine and the equipment space, and it's got to a place where farming may not be just a volume business anymore, right? It may come down to changing your organization and being more of a service industry, and maybe you own the implement and you're servicing customers utilizing these AI driven pieces of equipment. So from their perspective, it's more about, I think at least it's more about where are we going as an organization and what do we need to get in front of? And so I think they're really, really interested in that. And then I think from our executive leadership perspective, then you start getting into more of the like, yes, we really care about that and we're going to see where we're going. And then it comes more into the how can we leverage it to be more efficient and more effective. And so it's a partnership there between those two groups of people. And really, once you get past that, it's more about we are just now starting to formulate our committees on like how are we going to do this and what are the risks, what are the things we need to look for, and really how do we handle the security and privacy, just because it does seem to be something that threads all the way through, even from our member cooperatives all the way through to the growers even. Hey, what are you guys doing with my data? It comes up constantly, and it's a constant thing that has been around since I've worked here for 15 years. It's always been a thing that's come to the forefront of discussion. So, but yeah, I think there's a little bit of a separation of concerns there, right? They are more in that, where are we going? Where's the business models moving? And I think from our executive leadership, they're kind of just all in on all the stuff, like what is going on and what can we do? And then it really trickles down into those areas of expertise. Our security people are telling us, hey, this is kind of where this is going. This is what we need to do. And then from my perspective, I'm kind of talking through the technology and how can we leverage it and how can we serve it up for our members and give them peace of mind and so on and so forth.
Excellent. Really important to think about those complementary roles. Well, I think we could talk about this honestly for a really long time, especially with the two of you, given your expertise and really just the perspective that you have. But unfortunately, we're out of time for today. But I want to say thank you so much, both Radha and Leland, for your time and sharing your expertise. I do want to just mention that through the Mid-America Co-op Council, we have some upcoming training programs that might be of particular interest, particularly for new employees, folks who are new to the cooperative community on your teams, and or in that leadership position, maybe folks who are thinking about board leadership or who are early tenure directors, hoping to better understand that role. So the information there is always available at mac.coop, so take a look there. And then one more time, there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. Please do get in touch with us. Thank you so much to Leland and Radha, and we are going to be sharing information after today via email. So watch for that email. And one more invitation to share your feedback. We do really appreciate it. It helps us make sure programs are impactful. And of course, that information sharing about yourself is voluntary, but helps us understand our reach. So with that, I want to say thank you both so much one more time for sharing your expertise and demystifying a little bit of this space. We have a lot more to learn, but it's an exciting opportunity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks, everybody.
Thank you.